Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. I'm your host, Tom. Unfortunately, Massimo is not with us today, but we have the next best thing, or probably an even better thing, with our guest today, Craig Vetter, coming in from the West Coast, joining us today. Hey, Craig, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Tom. Thank you very much for having me. And I don't know if I'm better than Massimo, but I'll take that. And thank you very much for the nice introduction.
Yeah, no, we were chatting just a bit before this. I was explaining to Craig. I won't go into the gory details for the audience, but Massimo's in surgery today. Nothing crazy or life-threatening or anything like that, but he's going to be in a bit of pain for the next couple of weeks. So, bit of a cheap shot by me kicking a guy when he can't defend himself or he's not on the podcast to say something. I'm sure when he gets back, he'll have his comeback ready. So, I guess we'll just have to tune in for that. But we got Craig today, and Greg, really excited about having this conversation with you. I mean, we connected, I think back in, what was it, 2019, right around the time Blue Mortgage was kind of taking off, and it's been a wild ride for us since. And I think for you too, you've just grown and taken off and done a lot of exciting things. Maybe just to get started for the folks listening who might not be super familiar with your work, maybe just explain a bit about what you do and kind of how you got here. I always love origin stories. Like for me, I always say, I just stumbled into this market. It was completely by accident, and you know, haven't looked back since, of course, but love to hear, yeah, how you got here and kind of what you're up to these days.
Yeah, I mean, I guess going back is, I guess starting my career in regards to life and work and stuff like that. For about 15 years, I was on the road selling. It was selling safety equipment. So I had a lot of
Okay.
experience going out selling to oil and gas, refineries, paper,
Like
pulp, mines.
PPE, like what kind
Mostly,
of
yeah,
say?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
Love
sure,
PPE. So
okay.
for people, personal protective equipment, if people don't know what PPE is. So, but yeah, so I started out doing that. So I did a lot of training, a lot of sales training was involved in that. A lot of time spent on the road, driving out, visiting customers, building business. And I mean, I've got success stories from
Cool.
that, but no one really cares about what I did 20 years
Were you
ago.
were you
But
spending a lot of time in like Fort Mac at the time? Would you be up there or Calgary or
I did a
yeah, it's
little,
kind of
so
the
I was
hub, right?
based out of
Yeah.
Edmonton and I did work in
Okay.
Fort Mac, but most of my territory I did actually was in the diamond mines in Northwest Territories. So I spent a lot of time and
Oh,
flew up to BHP, Caddy Diamond Mine, there's Divex. So I spent a lot of time on flights up there working with the people up there. So
cool.
it was a pretty cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so
Yeah. So
diamond
anyways,
mines to
do that.
mortgages.
No,
I'm looking
yeah,
forward to
and
this transition.
I don't even know why I went back that
Yeah.
far. And then end up, I was sick of traveling. My wife and I opened
Uh,
up our own business. We had that for 5 years. So we built from, one employee up to, I think by the time we sold it, we had 14 employees. So we
Oh,
scaled it,
nice.
had it, walked away, sold it successfully. And we were in Edmonton. Then we said, what are we going to do? And we always wanted to move to BC. And that was part of our
Hmm.
retirement plan. This came up quite early. So we ended up moving out here. In doing that, I ended up connecting with one of my buddies that I knew from growing up, and his friend was a business coach. And so we
Okay.
ended up connecting there. He's still my business coach to this day. And we ended up
Mm.
really connecting, having a good time, meeting. And he's like, you got to get into this. And that was back in 2013, I believe. And I
Okay.
started kind of getting into it. I had good guidance, good mentorship, good coaching from him. And I basically was picking a niche. And so for me, I kind of went around a
Yeah.
bunch of different places. And then I started actually, funny enough, I started cold calling mortgage brokers and I picked up three clients from my cold calls.
Just randomly, like you thought, hey, mortgage seems like not a lot of people doing coaching in this industry. Let's get at it. Like it was kind of one of many
Eh,
industries that you were trying. What was kind of
Yeah,
the thought there of going after that industry?
yeah, I kind of looked at like HVAC, I looked at plumbing, electrical, stuff like that. And then I ended up
Okay.
just, so I'm like, hey, what am I going to do? I want to work with, professionals. Then I'm like, I'll call a bunch of different industries and see which people I connect with. And the mortgage brokers, I just had a connection with, and I enjoyed what they
Cool.
do. I like numbers. They're, most of the mortgage brokers we meet, you and I, and everybody else,
Hmm.
they're usually good with people, right? They've got to have some type of
Yeah.
connection talking to people. And so for me, that made it easy. So they weren't like, screw you, I don't want to talk to you. They would actually have a conversation with
Yeah.
you. So, and I end up picking
Okay.
up three brokers, and I still have two of them to this day that I still work with, which is kind
Oh,
of funny.
wow.
Yeah, so I started out in
Okay. Very
2014, and
cool.
then I got connected with some, common people that we know that connected me to some other people, and it was just all word of mouth. And since then, I'm very
Hmm.
fortunate, very blessed. All
Yeah.
my business, through word of mouth, through referrals from
Yeah.
past clients and people who know me. And so now consistently, I work one on one with mortgage brokers, and I help them to build businesses. So that's my main focus. So I work
Yeah.
with them understand what their goals
Yeah,
are, help them set up and establish and build businesses so they can grow and scale to whatever levels they want. So I help them achieve that. And
love
that's
it.
what I've been doing
Cool.
for, yeah, the last 10 years now, one-on-one with mortgage brokers. And it's been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. 10 years. Wow. Likewise for us, I kind of said, kind of very briefly at the beginning, kind of just stumbled into this industry and actually made a video on this recently, one of my little 1 minute videos. But it's just such an interesting market in that I think that the professionals that we work with, it's a very interesting overlap of quite a different things. And I think you touched on those, people who, yeah, first and foremost are very good with people. At the end of the day, I think a lot of it is a sales job. It is, but it's also people who at least have a financial head on their shoulders. You're not going to get very far with a client if you don't know your numbers pretty good backwards and forwards. The nature of the video I was making, I don't know why this is the case, but it seems to be true. I don't know if you find this also, but it's a lot of people who are very curious and willing to innovate. I mean, we've worked in some other industries, financial services, specifically kind of financial advisors, is another industry that we work in. We find on the mortgage broker side, there's a lot more of that hunger to say, okay, well, what's the next exciting thing? I know how I'm doing things today isn't going to be how I'm going to be doing things in 10 years. What does that transition look like? So that's the big thing that we found, and that's obviously helped us from a tech perspective. That hunger and that curiosity. Curious if you see the same thing. That kind of innovative, and it doesn't have to just be from a tech perspective, because I know you work through all aspects of someone's business, or correct me if I'm wrong, but we see it on the tech side. But I'd love to hear your experience. Like, do you see that with the people you work with, willing to try new things on tech, but even maybe try new things in terms of how they structure their team or how they set up their business? Like, what do you see in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree 100% exactly what you're saying. I think what I always go back to is like, what is their goal, right? Once you understand what their goal is, then
Mm,
you kind of look back. And for me, when I'm looking at helping people to improve their business, I look at, can we improve the process? In
okay.
what way? And then can we improve it with technology or people? And so usually everybody, for the most part,
Those
can
are
improve
usually
their
the two
process.
big levers for you. People, technology, that's where you go first.
Technology is number one, then people.
Mm,
And so if the
interesting.
technology can't do
Okay.
it, because technology is usually an easier, quicker fit to be able to do it,
Yeah.
cost less money, less investment if done correctly.
Less headaches too, right? In terms of, well, I won't go down that rabbit hole
Yeah,
of HR headaches, but there can be quite a few, when dealing with people. And
yeah,
sometimes it's worth it dealing with those headaches, but to your point, the lower hanging fruit it's not the lowest hanging fruit usually is going with the people. Sometimes there's better
yeah.
levers to do first, right?
That's
Yeah,
exactly. I was trying. If I can pull one lever that's going to impact 20 things, I'd rather pull that one lever instead of trying to pull 20 levers to do it. Right? It's kind of focus
smart.
on what's going to have
Yeah.
the biggest impact. And so usually it's looking at the process, see where the gaps are, see where the problems are, issues, see where you want to work on, and fix those things through, if we can, ideally technology. If not, then we're going to have people. And as you grow and scale, technology will only get you so far. You're going to have to
Of
add
course.
capacity through people if you want to grow and scale. That's not for
Yeah.
everybody, but if that's what you want to do, ultimately, if you want to create a business that kind of works for you, people are
Hmm.
going to be required at some point in time, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
that's the yeah.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think that, of course, I am more of a tech guy, and that's usually the lever I go to first, but there's many things, and we've talked about this a little bit, me and you, just in our conversations, how it's not going to get you all the way there. And I think a little bit now more than ever, that's true. I think, we're getting a lot more tech stuff. So there's a lot more, well, just tech tools. It's a bit more mainstream to talk about tech, I think, with exciting things like AI and that sort of thing. So it's, I think, top of mind for people a lot more. And there are opportunities there. But I think it's also a little bit of that double edge in that, okay, as these tools get more sophisticated for the broker, and okay, I can do more and more, the client, on the other hand, is going to get a lot more skeptical. I would say, 10 years ago, you could send out an e-blast, and if you said, hi, Tom, and then you had your newsletter in the middle there, that was sophisticated, right? It was like people
Yeah,
were like,
exactly,
whoa,
100%. Yeah.
you put in my name, this must be real. Now
Yeah.
people see that and be like, okay, this is just another piece of noise that I don't even want to pay attention. You got to get a lot more sophisticated and say, hey, Tom, your mortgage with TD that renews on this date is blah blah blah, right? So getting more sophisticated. So that's just a small example, but I wonder if you see that too. Okay, yes, these tech tools are getting better, but at the same time, because of that sophistication, the clients are almost hungry for that human connection more and more. Do you see that, Craig, with the people you work with?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see it across the industry, and especially with the people I work with. It's we try and really like the bare minimum. you know, is to have emails going out to your database. If you don't have that
Mm,
set up, and if you don't have a database right now, you're going to be struggling if you want to grow and do anything. So for me, those are the bare minimum, those tools. And what I look at is if you veer too far on the tech side, what happens is you're going to lose that
hmm
human connection. And if you're competing on the just tech base, like this is your business, it's all tech. It's I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want it all tech.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, like you look who you're competing against, you're competing, big banks are going to be
right.
trying to get that space. How much money do they have? How much revenue do they have to deal with it? I don't care if you're doing, if you're doing 20 million or 200 million, you're not going to have the revenue and the resources to be able to keep up with that game at
hmm
some point. So you look at what is your,
Completely.
what is your
Yeah.
differentiating factor in your business, right? And so you kind of look at that as your process, your people, how do you serve your people? What do you do that's going to be different than just the tech play? So utilizing
Okay.
the tech to be able
Okay.
to optimize your process, optimize, your post-funding process, whatever it is, but also utilizing the people that are available with you to customize and personalize that experience, right? And I think
Right.
that's where if you can kind of get a good mix of the tech with the personal experience,
hmm
you're going to
Yeah.
create something that's going to differentiate you in the marketplace. And then you basically have no competition because it's just a matter of you
Right.
getting better and better and better, right? And consistently doing that.
Completely.
And that's the way I look
Yeah.
at it. Yeah. So yeah.
No, it's such a good point when you look at, okay, yeah, if I'm going to differentiate on the tech and I'm going to be this low touch and I'm just going to automate everything. Okay, that's a business model. But yeah, who are you competing against? It's the banks, but it's also these big discount brokerages too, right? These, the Nestos and the Pines, these people who have raised tens of millions of dollars to go out and
Yeah.
build these very sophisticated things. And not to say that you can't find some success in that model. It's just, yeah, you're going to be constant. It's going to be a constant grind, right? And I do find a lot of that play is about grinding to the bottom. And so ultimately, yeah, like you said, it's a matter of how you want to differentiate. And for a lot of people, it's, yeah, that human connection and, maybe my realtor connections and my local community that I'm part of, I think that's huge. And the tech side of things, we've been talking about it like it's almost like a yin and a yang in that, hey, if you can't do tech, do people, you don't do people, do tech. But I actually think it's a little bit complementary, right? It's not one or the other. The best way maybe that you can connect with people is, having that database and saying,
Mm.
okay, I'm not just going to automate everything, but I'm going to have something that's going to inform me how the best way I can touch these people that I work with. Do you agree with that? How they can kind of work together if done right?
I 100% agree. I'd say probably 80% of my clients utilize Blue, so we can
Okay.
say that
Sure.
that's
Sure.
supportive. But it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what it is. It's the old saying goes, "What's the best CRM?" And you get this asked all the time. It's kind of what's the best gym? It's the one you go to, and for the best CRM,
Yes.
it's the one you
Right.
use. And I think for me, when I look at the clients I work with and in regards to Blue, it just makes it easy. So, for if we need to reach out to people, if we need to connect with people, we can send the emails out, but we don't just send the emails out. We can make phone calls. And it's not like we have
Mm.
to go
Yeah.
search and, we've talked about this and you've seen it all the time is where people have either files where they have to go through their filing cabinet to figure out who funded in
Yeah.
whatever year, 2018, or they go
Yeah.
into their share folder because they put everything online or their Google Drive where they have to go through and search. And to me, it's just then you don't end up making the calls. You don't end up making the renewal calls.
hmm
You don't end up looking for opportunities to save because it really is a pain in the butt to actually access that information and see who to call.
Yeah.
So I always look at that, and it doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, whether it be Blue or it be Zoho or it be Jungo or it be all these things, it's having a database that you can actually
Yeah.
utilize that works for you. So again, how do you get that tech to work for you rather than be a slave to the tech? And so for
Yeah.
me, I look at that as is it actually keeps you organized. You know where people are in the process. You know who's funded. You can pull a report. You
Yeah.
know who referred you. What
Yeah.
the conversion rate is and all those things and stuff that we talk about and we can geek out on and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But without that CRM or without that software,
Yeah.
that tech software to help you out, it makes it really
Right.
challenging to be able to do some of those things.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think for better or for worse, a lot of the mortgage brokers we work with, it's very much so a just-in-time business, right? In that it's like, a realtor call you, it's like, I need this file, like, help on this file right away, right? Or the underwriter calls you the day before closing, and it's like, hey, I need this new doc if we're going to close. Like, there's always that kind of hitting 10 minutes out, right? That phone call that's going to come in that's going to make you drop everything and just go. And so if you are doing kind of what you described, which is, okay, I really want to do my renewal calls, but you spend 10 minutes and you find that folder and you're just about to type in the numbers, and then that realtor calls, and now you're sidetracked. I think that, that's just how I think about it, is to say, yeah, it's not going to do those calls for you, and I don't think it ever will. I mean, I think I've seen AI tools that
Yeah.
purport to do that, and that's terrifying. And we could geek out on that, I think, a little bit. Terrifying and exciting at the same time, like these tools are. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of it right now, where a lot of the value is, and I think what you're saying too, is just removing that friction, removing it. And it doesn't have to be a database. There's a ton of other tools, but that's, I think, how tech should be viewed, is removing the friction to do what you need to get done, for your business. Maybe taking a step back, we kind of went a little bit down that topic of, tech versus people, and you say those are the two things you kind of look at when you first kind of start working with someone. I'm just curious, and I don't know if you'd be willing to share, but what are some kind of your gold nuggets? Like, you must have a playbook that you have that,
Yeah.
hey, I'm Tom the broker, and I reach out to you and I say, okay, Craig, I really want to work with you. Let's do this. Whatever, 3-month, 12-month commitment, however you work. And it's day one, and you really want to impress Tom and say, Tom, I know what I'm talking about here. This is, my number one play, and it's guaranteed to, boost you in this way or that way. Do you have kind of these nuggets that you like to really drop on people? Do you have something like that? I'm just curious. Like, what's kind of your process?
Well,
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, so I always like to understand, so asking questions and understanding what their business
Okay.
currently looks like. Because if I don't understand what their business currently looks like, the information or the knowledge I may give them may not land correctly. Right. So it really
Right.
understands where
Yeah.
they're at. So if they're a broker that's doing 15 million and they've been in the business for 3 years, their problems or the golden nugget that they need would be different than the
Mm,
broker that's been in the business for 15 years and doing 100 million. That being said, is if they want to grow their business, there is one guaranteed way I know that will help them grow their business, and that's picking up the phone. Again, I don't come up with these ideas. I'm not that intelligent. What I do is I borrow ideas from books that I've read, podcasts I've listened to, and conferences and things like that that I've been to. So I always say that, preface it with that. But what I look at is if you could block off 2 hours a day and you could make proactive calls to your referrals, your database, past clients and existing clients, and you just update them, ask for business, I guarantee sooner or later you will fall over some opportunities, some leads, some
you'll trip on
referrals.
something. Yeah.
That's the bottom line. So if you look at what is the magic, what is the secret sauce for anybody, even in a depressed market that we're in right now, it's really just picking up the phone and contacting people who know you, like you, trust you. Start there, make it simple, and that would be the magic bullet.
Just connecting with people, right? And I think it is so powerful. We talk about what is your differentiation as a broker. I think a lot of it's that, right? It's like that realtor who maybe you share an office with, or you've done a couple of deals with, or you have that connection. Yeah, I think it can be pretty powerful. So I guess, a lot of people listening might be like, I've heard this advice before. It's like, yeah, I know I need a call. Like, what else is new? But I can't do it, right? It's so tough for me. Maybe I'm nervous. I don't like calling people. It seems awkward. Like, people, I catch them, they're eating lunch or they're in their car. They don't want to talk to me. And that makes me uncomfortable. And then I lose my momentum. I mean, I guess maybe a bit more tactically, Craig, if we can get into that. I mean, what do you see in that sense? Like, do you say, okay, well, this is, always block 12 to 2, that's the prime time, go do that? I guess, is that feedback you hear from people, that hesitation to call? And what would be your response?
Yeah, and I think what I would say to that is it's less about tactics, it's more about the mindset and the belief system that you have.
Mm,
So the tactics you can
okay.
be there.
Yeah.
So I could tell you the best way to do it. It's Brian Tracy's got a book, Eat That Frog. Is first thing from 9 to 11, block off that time, 2 hours. It's not the number of calls; it's
What
the
was it?
time booked off.
Eat the frog?
Eat that
Okay,
frog.
I don't know
So
that one.
it's like
Okay.
first, it's first thing in the morning. Do the most difficult task you can do. So if you do that consistently,
Mm,
you will get results. The other
interesting.
thing, and kind of to the point, what you said is, there's 10 minutes, like somebody needs something. So if you're going to do that, you have to block everything off. One thing is when you open up your email or you check your phone and stuff like that, all it is other people's problems. So if you want to grow your
Yeah.
business, you can't do that because you're just going to you're going to get caught up in rabbit holes that don't really need any emergency
Right.
right now. If you had a doctor's appointment, you're not opening your phone and all of your problems are going to be okay. When you open them up, then they're going to
Yeah.
smack you in the face, right? So that would be a really strategy tactic I could say that would work. It really goes back to the mindset and the belief system. And so what I try to get people to do is to have a mindset of serving. And so if you come from a place of serving, you're not trying to call to get deals. What you're trying to do is call to see if you can help people out. And when you
Yeah.
change your mindset and belief system around that I need to make 10 calls, I'm going to get a deal, versus I'm just going to call 10 people and see if they're doing okay. See if they have
Yeah.
any questions, see if I can be of service to them. And so for me, that is a different way to look at than just pick up the phone. I need to do 10 calls so I can get a deal out of it, right?
Right. And be genuine about it. I think that's the trick, is I think people can sense it, right? And that, if you just say, "Hey, how are you? Things are good." Okay. If they're good, then this. If you are truly genuine and saying, "Hey, how is that mortgage? How's it treating you? What else is going on? Are you thinking of moving? Are you thinking of doing a reno or whatever it might be, right? Whatever that conversation might lead to. If you are truly genuine, and I think people realize that. And it's a good mindset. There's I think it's, I don't know, one of these guys like you. I just listen to guys and repeat what they say. I don't, I'm not that smart myself, but I think it was Gary Vee was one of these guys where I think a lot of his tactics is just give stuff away for free. Like,
Yeah.
and he's more just on the social media side, just like, here's my playbook, take it, right? Go run with it, do whatever. And you do that 3, 4, 5 times, and you're giving whatever this away, this way, this away. When you ask for something in return, it's a no-brainer for that person, right? It's almost like a little bit of I think, a human mindset where people consciously or subconsciously, they have these debts that they feel that they need to pay. So if you're constantly providing that value, maybe somewhere deep down in that person's conscious that you're working with, they're saying, "Hey, I do owe Tom this favor. I do owe Craig this favor because he's helped me so much." And again, that's, don't have that in mind. Be genuine in how you help, and that's, I think, how you can build up those relationships. So for someone who's doing that and now is really picking up those phone calls and doing it regularly and being excited about it, where do you usually go next? And it's something I think we've talked about. I'm just curious, maybe getting into the details of it, is get into those analytics side of things now. It's like, okay, now this phone call practice has become standardized for me. What can you do with that, right? What can we start getting smarter on? How can we, turn certain dials or do certain smart things that now that I'm starting to do this, but do it in the most efficient way possible? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll kind of tie back a little bit to what you
Sure.
said. Is really, it's
Yeah.
the great book. One of the books that I read on a yearly basis is Atomic Habits,
Oh
and
yeah.
he talks about
James
is
Clear,
really,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he talks
Yeah.
about standardize then optimize. So you kind of talk about standardize. So
No,
with
okay.
these calls, really, what you want to do is you want to standardize. So you want to make it consistent. They don't have to be perfect. And you and I both know is when you do the 100th call, you're going to be way better than the first call. But the only
For
way to
sure.
get to the
Yeah.
100th call is to do 99 calls after the first one, right? So
Yeah.
once you do, 99 calls, then we can look at optimizing and making that better. So it's really creating the habit and making the change to be able to
Hmm.
do it. Then when we look at the analytics, and so when I look at my ideal client, I look at what they're doing. I like them to do, if you look at post funding, let's say for calls, I like them
Sure.
to do a first payment call. I love to do that, check in, just to make sure everything's going well, make sure the payment came out okay, let them know what you're going to be doing moving forward. I love to do a 6 month call, then an annual review, 12 months, then 18 months, then 24 months. And people are like, oh, that's a
Hmm.
lot of touch points. But if you're calling them and you're
Yeah.
checking in and you're just seeing how they're doing, you're going to get 70% of them are going to be voicemail, but that's never a waste. And the conversations you have, you might not
Yeah.
get a business settled, but you're going to have a conversation. You're going to open up opportunities to ask for referrals. You're going to open up
Yeah.
opportunities to see, okay, like you said, like, do you guys have any consumer data? Are you guys looking at, upsizing, downsizing, all these conversations, especially during annual review, they're going to open up potential future opportunities where you can help them to get into the best position possible. And so you
Yeah.
may not get any business right now, but the compounding effect of that, and we've seen it over and over again, is you will increase the amount
Yeah.
of renewals you'll get, and you will get a lot more referrals from it. So you're
Right.
planting all of these seeds just by going and checking and seeing how they're doing. So when you look at the numbers, you look at the analytics. When I look at,
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what specific numbers? I'd be curious if you're like, okay, Tom, I'll use Tom as the mortgage broker, and you sign up, from today, and in the past he was doing no phone calls. I don't know if this is an actual scenario, but and then going forward, he's doing all these things you're talking about: the first payment date, the anniversary date, all these things. And then in a year or two or three, you look back and you say, okay, this is the type of renewals you were getting before, and now these are the types of renewals you're getting after, or referrals. Maybe, I don't know if you have specifics, but do you see a bit of a step change there? Like, do you see those results? Because I think for a lot of people, when they think about, oh, I got to do 100 calls and just build up that compound, is it even worth it? How do I know this is leading somewhere? And you have the benefit, Craig, of working with a lot of really top brokers and seeing those results. So curious what you do see. I don't know if you have specifics or just kind of anecdotal, or what do you see in terms of those actual results in the numbers.
Yeah, so I guess first off, what I'd say is when I get people to do it, I love tracking. I love looking at numbers. I love looking at
Mm.
analytics. So when we utilize a Blue or a system like that, that allows us to be able to pull the analytics without people going into their notebook and trying to pull that information off or
Yeah,
check it in
yeah,
a database. So
yeah.
with that being said, when I look at the clients that I work with and when we're tracking everything, when I look at the numbers, if you look at from a lead to funded conversion rate, we're probably going to be for a past client going to be anywhere between the neighborhood of 45 to 55, 60%. So that is from
Okay,
an initial lead to there. If we look at past client referrals, we're about 40 to 50%. So when you look at those
okay,
are the top
yeah,
two. And then you look at financial advisors and accountants are going to be just below that. So they're going to be 30 to 40%. You look at realtors, they're going
no
to be
kidding.
anywhere between 5 and 15%. These are the numbers
Realtors are
that I
below
have.
financial advi
Realtors
Realtors are
are
below financial.
yeah, and I could get into the whole thing on financial
Yeah, we,
advisors. They come from more trusted
yeah,
source. Realtors are
right.
skewed a bit because a lot of realtors right now are doing paid online leads. So you're getting leads, and so that'll bring the conversion rate down. And then you look at online Google leads. A lot of them will fund at a very low rate. So when we look at the amount of hours and effort that you're putting into getting a funded file, you want to ideally work with people who would convert at the highest rate. So how do you
Mm,
get more of those people that will convert? So if it takes, let's just say it takes 10 hours to do a file. It's everybody's different. I would say you want to
yeah,
look at that. But if you look at 10 hours to work a file, if you could get 10 referrals come in and from past clients and past client referrals, and you get 6 of them close, that's 60 hours, that's 100 hours of work and 6 of them are closing. And we could do all the math on how much
yeah.
you get paid. But if you get it from, let's say, online, or you get it from like realtors, you get 10 referrals and you might get
It's
one
the
or
same
two of
hundred.
them.
It's the same 100 hours work though, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
It's the same.
yeah,
And we could get into that. And working with past clients or financial advisors or past client referrals, they come from a referral. So they're more likely to trust you, less likely to shop you around. They're more willing
of
to
course.
provide
Yeah.
documentation because they come from a trusted source. So a lot of times those ones will actually be less work than the ones you're
Yeah.
getting from random people and stuff like that. So when I look at that and you look at, okay, well, how do we get more of these higher producing referrals? What we do is we
Hmm.
go through the database because there are already people who know you, like you, trust you. So why not reach out to them and have those conversations instead of trying to build and nurture relationships with new people? Again, I'm pretty lazy with this. So I like to go, where is the low hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Let's focus on
Yeah.
that and then start building that. And if you can
Yeah.
pull that lever, you're over time, what happens is you're going to get more of those good quality referrals. Your volume's going to be able to go up with less work, and you're going to be
Hmm.
able to look at those numbers and see, okay, I'm doing less work, less applications, less leads,
Hmm.
more funded files. Makes sense to me, right?
Completely. Just funny on that point of being lazy. I think I read somewhere one time where it's like, hey, there's nothing more valuable to an organization than a lazy engineer because they'll figure out the hack
Figured
or
out,
whatever
yeah.
to, to get the same work done with the least time possible. And then you take their method and you give it to everyone else. But
Yeah, I
um,
always say is I do
yeah,
the Tim Ferriss method. He's the minimum effective dosage is what he calls it. So instead of being
okay.
lazy, it's what's the minimum effective amount input that you can
Yeah.
get the maximum output. And so that's the way I
Yep.
look at it. Even the other thing you look at with your database is the highest volume producers. So let's say
Mm.
you could do 10 deals of 100,000, 10
Hmm.
deals of 300,000, say your average deal is 300,000, or 10 deals at 500,000. Which one, if you're a mortgage broker and all's the same, which one do you want to do?
Right. Yeah. Of course, the highest volume, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to do, you focus on that is, minimum effective dosage is to focus your time and energy on those clients and those
Yeah. The
partners
higher
as
volume.
well. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
with you
Well,
don't
I
have the
think that's
analytics, you
yeah.
can't do that. Right.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's one where, for someone listening might be like, yeah, of course I want to go over after those 500,000. I mean, yeah, why wouldn't I? That seems so obvious. But I think there's two important points to make, which is one, apply it to your clients, but also your referral partners. So I think that's a huge part of it, right? Where there's, a certain type of realtor or financial advisor or whatever that might be sending you, whether it's low conversion or low value leads. But also it's the ability to, and I don't know if this is something you kind of see a lot in yours, the ability to say no as well. So knowing, first of all, getting really smart about your ideal customer profile. So again, using a database, whatever, looking back and saying, hey, over the past whatever years, I crush these types of files. It's a and you can get really specific because there's no shortage. Even in the most narrow niche can have a pretty good depth in well, in any market, but Canada included. you could say, hey, my niche is, self-employed people who are looking to buy a second property. I don't know. I'm making it
Yeah.
pretty niche here, but you could. And then you get in someone who the first time home buyer who's maybe young, who, is just kind of shopping around and doesn't match that profile, the ability to say no, right? Being able to say, I know the data, know my numbers, you don't fit it, having, I guess, both that analytical confidence, but also just that, people skills to say, hey, do you know what? I really appreciate the referral. Maybe it was a referral. Don't think it'd be a fit here. I can recommend A, B, and C. Is that something you come across, I guess, with the clients you work with, like that really strong ability to say no? Because I feel like that's so tough. Like even for me to say, there's always the toughest emails for me to write. Like sometimes people write in, like realtors, being like, "Hey, can we use Blue Mortgage?" I'm like, "No, you can't because you're not. It's made for mortgage brokers, and I know in 2 months you're going to regret it if I let you in right now. So let's save us all a lot of time and headaches, I guess, before getting there." So what's your experience with that, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start out with a great quote that Warren Buffett says is, the difference between successful people and really successful people are really successful people say no a lot. And so it's really
Okay.
focusing.
Yeah.
And so getting to say no a lot and protecting your time, you really need to. I go back to the numbers. The numbers will tell you because what you feel versus what reality is two different things. And it changes on a day-to-day
Yes.
basis,
Yes,
right?
completely.
And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell this happens all the time where I have a broker who's crushing it. So I have brokers who are having phenomenal first quarters, doing really, really well. And then they have a week where they get beaten down, they lose 3 deals to the bank or whatever it is. And I talk to them that week and they're like, the sky is falling. I got this
I
business sucks to do
I'm
whatever,
leaving. Yeah, I'm going
right?
to
And so it's like talking them
Yeah.
off the ledge. And so,
Yeah.
but then we always go back to like, what do the numbers say? Like, how many leads
Hmm.
do you have coming in? How many applications? Where's that coming from? So when we look at the numbers, we really can understand what's happening. And so when we look at actually where you want to focus your time and energy, I always go back to is like, sure, I get all my business from realtors. Okay, let's look at that. Do you get all your business? No, you get all your leads from realtors, but they're converting at 10%, and you got the same
You waste a
number of
lot of
actual
time. Yeah.
files. Correct,
Yeah.
right? And so maybe you should cut out these 3 realtors, not all of them, but maybe you should relook at that and have a conversation and say, right now I'm overwhelmed, whatever,
Yeah.
and have that conversation, the difficult conversation of I don't want any more of your leads, or you need to
Yeah.
pre-qualify. So that's what I really look at is not say no to them, is say, what
Right.
can we do differently in the process that can help us
Yeah.
streamline those leads to make them better so there's actually worthwhile for both myself and you to be able to have a conversation
Yeah.
with them. And so it's kind
Yeah.
of
And
looking at working together in a partnership, right?
yeah, exactly. Right. It's not a no, it's a, I don't know what the improv is like a yes, but, or something like that, right? Out of
Well, it's like
like
we
there's
need to
some real, yeah,
relook at it
yeah,
and reevaluate. Okay, how do
yeah,
we make this and optimize with what it is?
yeah.
Because it's great to get leads, but how do we optimize it so we can both benefit? Because if the realtor's spending a whole bunch of time spinning their wheels, they don't want to do that either,
No,
right?
it's not worth
That's
their
not
time. Yeah.
exactly right. So
And
kind of a
and in
win-win.
my example, it's like, have that conversation with the realtor to say, hey, given what I've looked at historically, actually where I'm focusing going forward are self-employed people looking for a second property. And they could turn around and be like, why didn't you tell me that earlier, right? I have a lot of those, but I didn't think you wanted them. Okay, right? Like we can rejig this, right? So yeah, it's about, I think, having that transparency. And I think we've talked about this a lot. This should be like the title episode, which is numbers don't lie. Having data-driven conversations, because I find that people can get emotional. If it's just
Mhm.
he said, she said, pointing fingers. Hey, you know what? I did send you a lot of good leads. What are you talking about? But if you can pull it up in front of the person and said, well, you sent me these 10 leads and actually 2 only converted. It's a lot tougher, right? It's a lot tougher. It's like, and then you can move forward. That becomes your foundation. Okay, so this isn't working. How do we become better, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
100% agree. And when you have those educated conversations, because emotions can take over so easily, then you can
yeah,
come up with a plan on how to move forward. So I think that's what you're saying. I would
yeah.
100% agree with. It's just, again, the numbers, they can lie a bit how you look at them, but for the most part,
For
they give
the
you a
most
pretty
part.
good idea
Yeah,
of what's happening in your business, where you need to focus on in your business, right? So having a
for
system
sure.
that can allow you to do that, for me, it makes
Yeah.
life wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. All right, Greg. Well, listen, I've taken more of your time, but we've just been having such a great convo that I didn't want to stop. Really, again, do appreciate your time jumping on here. It's great chatting with you, and we should do it again sometime soon. But I guess any final thoughts for the listeners out there before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when I look at the business right now, it's been, a tough, let's say the last
Yeah,
18 to
tough year.
24 months has
Yeah,
been,
yeah,
a real challenge. And so I think what I would say is if you're looking at doing anything, coaching, I always recommend it, mentoring, accountability partners, all that stuff does work. But bottom line is you need to do the work. And so if you were thinking
yeah,
about doing anything right now, is to go through your database, pick up the phone, make sure you're on top of all your renewals, and then call everybody in your database and just see how they're doing. If you come from a
yeah,
place of serving and do that, I guarantee you will fall over business, you will stumble over business. But in
yeah,
addition to that, what you're going to do is when the market does change and does turn, because I think you and I wouldn't put money on, I say I wouldn't put money on when it will change, but I know it will change. It will come back, right? That's just the
yeah.
reality of the situation. So if you're doing this work now, you're going to be in the best position possible when stuff does change because you've put in the effort, you've put in the work. And so
Mhm,
coming up
mhm.
with something
Yeah.
simple like that is the best way to be able to do it, to get out. There's no magic, no magic bullet.
There's
It's
no excuse to doing the work, right? And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And for that reason, to your point, when the market does come back, you're going to be way ahead of all those people who didn't do the work, who didn't go through their database and didn't make those phone calls. So now is the time to build those relationships that are gonna really serve you over the next couple of years.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah, and you
absolutely.
may feel
Yeah,
like you're in quicksand because you're not getting the results you think you could get. But the bottom line is the results will come if you put in the work. Focus on the process, fall in love with what you're
trust the
doing, and
process. Yeah,
yeah, you'll get results. And yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing I'll say is if anybody has any questions or they want to chat, I don't have a big social network, social following, but I'm happy to, can send me an email, craig@betterconsulting.ca. I'm happy to answer questions, respond,
yeah.
support
Yeah, you've
people.
always been good just answering questions, and yeah, we'll include all that info too in the
Yeah,
podcast show notes and all that stuff. I'd say anyone listening, even if you just have a question about anything we talked about today, I know Craig is a stand-up guy and he's always eager to help. So I'd say don't hesitate, and who knows where that conversation can go. Like we've been talking about, right? The conversation's always the starting point. So
exactly.
absolutely. Okay, great. Well, thanks
Thank you
again,
so
Craig.
much, Tom. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
have a good one. Bye for
You
now.
too, buddy. Take care. Thanks.